Evening, everyone. Welcome to the adventures of the USS Marvel with the 10th Expeditionary Fleet. Hailing frequencies are open, and we are running with half cast currently at the moment, but we expect most of the rest of our crew to be here anytime now. We are going to jump right in tonight, unless there are any announcements from my players.
I've got nothing.
Likewise.
Alrighty then. Well, we last left off in a lovely juncture as the USS Marvel departed from the Tholian border, having secured a promise from Tholian representative, designated 1 by the computer, as the evidence came forward that there is a third party that seems to be provoking the Tholians using Federation-grade vessels and some unique technology of their own. Plans were drawn, and the Marvel set out and away from the border to attempt to try and intercept these rampant vessels as they headed off towards Cardassia on a direct course for the edge of the Badlands. As our crew begins to set out and the beta shift takes over for the majority of the crew, and Commander Vis takes over as the lead of Beta Shift, you are finding yourself able to relax and step away from the duties of command for the first time in almost 18 hours, as emergencies have kept the Alpha Shift in pretty much full shift the entire time you were on the Tholian border.
I'm just glad to finally get a break.
Where are you off to at this point?
Probably first to the mess hall to grab whatever meal my body thinks it's time for, and whatever the chef happens to be cooking. And after that, I'm probably gonna run down by sick bay to just check in with the doctor real quick, make sure everything's good down there, because I hadn't had a chance to stop by there yet since we've been on board and actually gotten into doing things.
Entirely fair. At roughly the point in time that you're able to get whatever you feel like eating, as between the Replomat having a good number of Federation standards, which, to be fair, that is a complex and infinite menu all on its own, the diplomatic suites and the promenade have an eclectic mix of actual entrepreneurs doing business on the ship for the crew. So you have plenty of options to pick from. It's roughly at about 2,200 hours that you're finally able to pull away from your food and head to the med bay, where Dr. Tanan, are you still going to be on duty? Technically, Alpha Shift has ended.
Yeah, I think it's a small crew, so we don't mind pulling long hours, especially since we're not doing a lot. We can just sort of catch up on other things.
So you're technically
Whatever.
not on the clock, but you're enjoying personal work at this point.
Yeah, like researching fascinating microscopic enzyme that's been discovered. That's fun for her.
Captain, as you head down to medbay, it's fairly empty. The smaller array of chairs and med beds arrayed around a central console, and then a small side office where there is currently a light that shows the doctor is in.
I'll step into the med bay and make my way over towards the office. And is the door open or closed?
Open.
Open.
Yeah.
I will press the chime anyway, but then say, "Hello, doctor."
Oh, hello, Captain. She puts the data pad down.
Have you been making it okay in a relatively small sick bay? Things been going okay?
Yeah, no, absolutely. She stands up to greet you. Absolutely. Why don't you join me? Pointing at the chair across from her desk.
I'll go take a seat across from the doctor. I just wanted to swing by and check in with you. I know we hadn't really had a chance to talk much since we all got on board. Seems like we've been thrown into the fire.
Absolutely, yeah. I wasn't expecting such so much chaos, I guess, in the first couple of days.
I'm just glad that we got through it without people shooting at each other.
I hope that trend continues.
Me too. Me too.
She notices the time on her console and looks a little surprised. It's rather late. You must be exhausted.
Yeah, it's between trying to organize things with the outpost out here on the border, getting the majority of the fleet to stand down and not at least be at attention, weapons armed on the Tholian border, and just dealing with normal shift work. It's been a long day. Finally glad to step off and let Commander Viss take over for a bit. I know. I mean, I see you're still in the office too. Or are you here working still, or is this
not officially? No, I'm just catching up on some light reading. I find this time is very quiet, and it's a good time to read.
Yeah. Do we have enough medical staff for you to not feel completely overworked?
Absolutely. Don't worry about that one bit. That's of no concern. I like
That's my job.
It's my job to worry as well, so we can share in that.
And luckily, It has been a very light day, with considering the potential for disaster that was present. The only people that have been in so far are a engineer that had a little bit of an accident underneath the replicator, who is resting in the second bay with one of the regenerators to help reset the bone positions, and of course your other patient, Specialist Arel.
Of course. Yeah, luckily. Yeah, I'll take quiet days over busy days any day, because that means everyone's safe.
From where I came in, would I have seen Specialist Arel in one of the biobeds? Or because I don't see on the map where the entrance to the main hall is. I'm kind of...
The main entrance is, let's see if I can ping it for you. There's a button for that.
If you hold the mouse button down, it usually does it, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that is the hall. I thought that was like a back room or something, but that is the hall.
Yeah, that's...
Okay.
Yeah, over here is where you've got your turbo lifts, you've got a supply closet.
Yeah, the giant computer with the medical symbol and what looks like a bio readout next to it kind of confused me.
That's fair.
Okay, so no, I did not see Arel then. So
that's fair. I guess that grants patients a bit of privacy, right?
Yeah, no, I mean that's a good thing, because if I had seen it, I would have said something. But
and that would have been cool. But this works nicely.
Yeah.
But no, I like I said, I've had enough bad days that I'm happy to just have quiet days. So
I motioned to the pad/book. Is it a pad or a book that you're reading? Actual book? Or?
I think it's a pad. Just
pad. Motion to pads.
An article on it of some sort.
What's the news in the medical?
Some sort of new enzyme discovered on Centennial 3.
Okay.
I think it may have... may be useful for countering certain viral strains that are native to the planet. So I don't know all of it yet. I admit I just kind of started, but I'm excited to learn more.
I never really had a knack for the medical arts. When I went through the academy, I did my best. I know enough to do emergency first aid, but while it's very interesting, it just never really clicked.
Mm-hmm. I didn't think I would be interested in it at all, honestly. I was actually more interested in stellar photography at first. But my time at the Institute and then in Starfleet, I don't know, something clicked, and I discovered a passion I didn't know I had.
That's a heck of a change.
Yeah. I mean, I still like those other things. I just... get to pursue them more casually.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a stellar cartographer, it's a backup. I'm the
Nah,
woman.
I mean, we do have some of the best sensors in the fleet. Heck, you could just spend. I could spend time in stellar cartography, just sit there and like, show me random sector of the galaxy, and just kind of sit there and watch.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah. Space is
Rare that the
big.
science
Space is
sector-
beautiful.
It is, and it's rare that science gets to be pretty. If that makes sense.
Oh, it totally does. Medical science was never pretty. Medical science was bloody and full of things that I don't want to be near.
Yeah, absolutely. It's derived from a place of wanting to end pain, which is good, but
yes,
it's there to deal with pain, so I understand. Yeah. Is this your... I admit I haven't checked your file. Is the Marvel your first command?
First official command. I was commander on the Endeavor for a little bit while the captain was recovering after the Battle of Sector 001, but this is the first official posting.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you, Doctor.
Must feel very good, for lack of a better word, like a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, and I'm glad to be on something experimental, kind of cutting edge. I know a lot of the people I went through command school with, they ended up on Miranda-class ships and the old beat-up ships, and they have their place. We have need of them. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to be on the back end of the duty roster.
Absolutely. Just trying to think if I served on a Miranda ship before.
Time that you actually hear that chime go off, Doctor.
Okay.
And there, a blue head that you've started to become familiar with over the past roughly week pokes his head in. A Lieutenant Tadad, Sheikh Tadad. He's technically your second in command, though in the Doctor's world, it's always a little interesting how that dynamic plays out.
How do you spell that name?
QHIQ for the first name and TADOD for the last.
QHIQ. How do you pronounce QHIQ?
Chic.
There you go. I'll spell it phonetically. You said blue head. Is that Boolean then?
Yes, correct.
Awesome. Cool.
Doctor?
Oh, Doctor.
Oh, I didn't realize you had company. Hi, Captain.
That's all right.
Nice to
No worries, Lieutenant.
I just wanted to check in before heading out. I gave the yeoman over in Bed 8 his metroprizine so that the regrowth of some of those tendons doesn't hurt as much as it's supposed to. But I wanted to check in with you about the scans you requested for the specialist. She is leveling out the way you're hoping she will.
Well, that's excellent news. Thank you.
No problem. I will forward those scans to your station. And
absolutely. Please continue.
Yeah. No, that was about it. I'm turning everything over to Nurse Kimi, and hopefully she should be fine for the rest of the evening when Gamma Shift takes over.
Excellent. I'll take a look at those studies or those scans tomorrow just to be 100%, but I'm confident in your findings.
Sure thing, Doctor. And nice to see you, Captain.
Have a good evening, Lieutenant.
Thank you, Captain. And very quickly, it's like a head dip out of the door, but you can hear the door across from your office quickly as he makes his way out.
That's still something I'm getting used to. People almost seem scared to say the captain.
Yeah, I mean, don't you remember you were an ensign?
Vaguely, but I always wanted to be in the center chair. So I always tried to. I was going to say, I tried to. Well, I wasn't an ensign for that long, thankfully. but I always wanted to be in the center chair. I planned and went through school planning to be in the center chair, so I tried to emulate the captain as much as possible on my first posting, and you can't do that if you're scared of him.
That's a very good point.
But I totally get it, but it's very different from being an XO. Because as the XO, I mean, yes, people are concerned about you because you write out their duty shifts and you're responsible for their promotions, but they don't almost run at the sight of you, and that's a different feeling.
Well, may I suggest that you reframe it as not fear, but I hate to use the word awe because it's not the right word, but
Respect, sort of.
respect, yes. No one wants to disappoint you. That's all.
That's good advice, Doctor.
You do have, several masters in psychiatry as well.
I know the lieutenant mentioned the specialist was in here, and there's the whole patient-doctor confidentiality, but is Specialist
course.
Royale okay?
Absolutely. You have no need to worry about her health.
Okay. That's
She's
good
in
enough.
hands. Just some minor issues with her prosthetic. But we're dealing with it, and things look optimistic. I can
Alright.
safely tell you that without breaching any contact.
That's perfectly fine. And most of the time, I wouldn't even dare to ask because this is your domain. But seeing as how it is an experimental warp drive, we do kind of need her up and about somewhat in case something goes wrong. But
of course. And this isn't, I mean, it's sick bay that you've put me in charge of, but I like to think that this is everyone's domain. They're all welcome here, and yourself included. So, and I hope that I'm welcome on your bridge whenever whenever it's required.
Always, Doctor. You're always welcome to come up there. But I'll let you get back to your reading. I'm going to go grab whatever passes for sleep.
Yes. I recommend at least 7 hours tonight. You've been on duty for a long time.
That's the plan. We'll see. We'll see if the ship agrees.
Okay. Well, we'll see you tomorrow then.
Have a good evening, Doctor.
Good night.
And as you step out, it's quiet as, again, Alpha Shift has been on priority duty a lot longer than they're supposed to. Generally 8 to 10 hours, then Beta Shift takes over, then Gamma Shift, and with the Tholian situation, it has been nothing but chaos all day long. You head back to your quarters and find it quiet, relaxing, smooth. You go through your rituals, maybe a little music, a drink or two if you want.
Hot tea.
Hot tea.
Hot tea is the answer.
And as the ship slowly cruises at a much slower than normal warp 3, as your crew is still trying to make sure you can try to sneak in some scans across the border to try and follow that trail, you can see the stars just slowly floating by like pieces of dust on the wind.
Did the Tholians allow us to fire new probes to help follow the path from their side since we weren't allowed to go in?
They did not.
They did not. Okay.
So you have resorted to, unless you want to sneak over the border,
No.
play around with long-range scans and a bit of scrappy determination from your science crew.
Right. No, I would not be planning to sneak over the border. I was just curious if we got the extra probes to go look to, but if not, that's fine.
As you begin turning in for the night, there's a sound actually from your main living quarters, off from the bed compartment. It almost sounds like a transporter in just the vaguest sense of that warbling sound that transporters often have underneath the various emission qualities that each different star empire seems to have. It's warped enough, though, that it just sounds off.
I reach under the desk and grab the emergency phaser that I hide there and take a quick look around. And assuming I don't see anything, I'll ask the computers if there's anyone else.
There is something in your living quarters. A human man, maybe about 30 years old, blackish hair that's kind of fluffy up in the air but receding back on his head, in just the most arrogant posture sitting on one of your chairs. Well, this is absolutely dreadful. I mean, what do they think they're putting out here in these desperate times?
Okay, out of character, I think I know, but do I recognize who this is?
Yes, every captain, regardless of how new they are, especially exos and other security-facing personnel, have faced briefings on the wonders that are the Q continuum, especially this particular Q.
What?
I was afraid of that. I don't put the phaser away, but I don't point it at him. It's like, your Q.
One of many. At your service.
Somehow I doubt that.
Au contraire. I mean, after all, I'm sure your Starfleet records show that every time that I come around, something happens for the betterment of your species. No, wrong term. Your conglomeration.
Out of character, I'm trying to remember how many people died the first time Q sent the Enterprise into Borg space.
Only
I
10.
want to say it was like 20.
Yeah, like
Was it only 10 crew members?
Only 10.
Yeah. It's like, well, somehow I doubt the 10 crew members who died thrown out into the Delta Quadrant the first time we have record of you appearing agree with your being benevolent every time you show up.
Well, you wouldn't call the old gods of your world benevolent either, but they did reveal knowledge and understanding of the greater world around you. After all, where would you be now? With the Borg and the Dominion if we hadn't given you that little push?
I don't disagree. But it does mean that we are cautious.
Yes, and then of course there's Cisco. What a barbaric man. And, there is that one little ship all the way out in the Delta Quadrant. Captain Janeway, she is an exquisite person, I will say that much. Absolutely a fantastic woman.
You've seen Voyager?
Yes, she's a beautiful, tiny little thing. And I'm not talking about the ship.
I do chuckle a little bit. That's like, the Voyager is okay. The crew is making their way.
Oh, they're most certainly not okay. Nobody out there is okay. But they're doing as best they can. I mean, they quite literally are running their ship on the absolute minimum necessities. And then they have that criminal offense of a simulation as a doctor.
I'm sorry.
But I'm not here to gossip about other crews. No, I'm here about you. Carr, I think it is?
You're well informed. Jonathan Carr.
I
do do reach out a hand to shake his hand.
Oh, so forward and polite. Even Picard wasn't this nice. Pleasure to meet you. And he does take the hand nice and firmly. At which point, you're no longer in your personal living quarters. You are somewhere else. Immediately, it's not quite sure where, as it's green, it's pretty, it's shiny and bright outside, little humid, little off. It feels kind of like a tropical planet that just overgrew itself a little bit.
I glance around. Do I have a tricorder and or phaser on me?
You have whatever you were wearing at the time of preparing for bed.
Oh, crap. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised at this. Where are we?
I don't know. But it is very nice. I think I may have come here once with a lovely young lady who was obsessed with treasures. But that might have been a lifetime ago. I don't know. It is nice, though. But that's not important. I needed you away from all of those delicate, strange devices that your ship decides to suddenly have. Just never worth the time and effort to deal with new technologies that are so temperamental. I could sneeze and the entire ship goes down.
I will appreciate you not blowing up my ship with a sneeze.
Such is the life. But no, Captain, this is where I want to look at you and say, do you really know what you're doing? I mean, such a fresh face, fresh command, and you're setting off against Tholians and rampaging people. I thought you were an explorer, not a warrior.
I do consider myself an explorer, but I don't consider myself overly afraid of protecting myself and mine.
I see. Well,
Or, for that matter, those that we associate with.
does that mean you still hold on to what's left of you from the Dominion War? Or are you trying to reinvent yourself as some new version of the Federation, strong and stalwart against the injustices of the universe?
I would say it's not so much a new part of the Federation as much as a return to its roots. I know from our records you've dealt plenty with Jean-Luc Picard. I'm sure he could wax eloquently about all of the progress that we've made. He's not wrong,
Yes.
but we're not perfect either.
Oh, dear Captain Carr. That Picard knew how to wax poetic about anything. An absolute delight of a man. If a bit stuffy, and arrogant, and absolutely full of himself. But I do suppose he would. But as much as he waxes poetic about the virtues of your Federation, I will say, Voyager has it lucky. They don't have to see what your Federation has actually become. I mean, look at yourselves, fighting massive, bloody wars. There's a reason I took a vacation after Benjamin punched me in the face. I mean, just no. The Alpha Quadrant was just dreadfully barbaric for a good too many years.
Punched you in the face?
Yes, he's not a very nice
That didn't
man.
make it into the reports.
Oh, he was absolutely barbaric.
Oh,
Sure.
I can't go back to I can't go see him on Deep Space Nine. He's wherever it is that he went. But man, I would love to get his read on that.
Yeah. No, that was... No, not one of my favorite moments of your species. I just simply was trying to have a bit of fun with him, and he completely struck me.
He is more of a no nonsense captain than many in Starfleet. That's the reason that he did so well at Deep Space Nine, dealing with everything that dropped on his doorstep.
Yes, I suppose so.
But with regards to your comment about Voyager missing everything that's happened here, I don't think you're wrong. Voyager is getting to do what I wish we could do. Not that I have any desire to necessarily be stuck in the Delta Quadrant. I rather wish they weren't that far away. But being able to explore, find new people, experience new things, that's
They
what
found with the Borg.
draws us. They found the Borg. Well,
Oh,
I guess they are in the Delta Quadrant, so that makes sense.
They have been dancing a dance that will probably go down in your Federation history for ages to come. But again, I'm not here to gossip about other ships. I'm here to talk about you, Captain. Have you noticed anything peculiar about your crew? Anything unusual about the ship? Besides the apparent disaster that is your engine, I am not even going to begin to talk about that mess.
I figured if anyone would be interested in that, it would be you because it shows the combining of two different species working together.
Yes,
and you're
the
combining
Romulans
that kind of.
and humans. Absolutely fantastic and dull. Nothing new there, just combining of old into something fresh.
Is that not the definition of something new?
No, new is novel, new is exciting. That's just two pieces of old manure that have been polished into something new. It looks
Somewhere in the
gigantic,
universe,
right?
there's a Zach Dorn going, should I be insulted?
I
I feel like I should be insulted.
But
Welcome, Dara.
something about the people you're working with, Captain, the things that you're doing.
It is an eclectic crew. I mean, it's the second time on record that we've had a Cardassian and a Bajoran working together. And we have our specialists, the Trill, on board. And the Trill are just a fascinating species with their generational memories and such. So, really, you're working with 5 or 6 people at the same time.
Yes, I suppose so. That is absolutely incredibly dull.
For you, I'm sure it is.
I'm
For us,
talking about a lack of something on board your ship, Captain. Something is missing. Something that's been there before in hundreds and thousands of your Federation vessels, and it's missing. And I'm just curious why you're not.
I'm not missing it.
Missing it. Curious why it's not there? Think about it, Captain. There have been so many advances by your Federation in technology and in ethics and in all sorts of things. And yet, your ship looks like it could have been designed before the Dominion came and mixed everything around. It's a step back, not a step forward.
If you're referring to tactical prowess,
You should know how I feel about tactics and military effect.
you find it beneath you because you think nothing could ever harm you.
Well,
And for the time, I suppose you're correct.
But no, I'm talking about a diversity that's being taken away. Think about your crew, Captain. They all seem to fit a somewhat similar standard. Basic human appearances, maybe a touch of variation here, a little bit shorter here, some dangly skin there, maybe a few spots here and there, but do you see any real diversity? Do you see androids? Do you see holograms? Do you see anything new or wondrous in your crew? It's all old hat.
I look around and find a log to sit on, and just kind of regard him as like, humanoid races make up 95% of the Federation as a whole, at least that of officer candidates that make it through Starfleet Academy. To have someone truly unique while still serving on a ship capable of supporting, for lack of a better term, standard life is difficult. If we had, you brought up the Tholians, if there had been a Tholian in Starfleet, they would either have to be on a completely Tholian ship, or they would have to walk around in an exoskeleton all day. And to my understanding, that is at best uncomfortable for them, and not something we would, certainly not something we would force upon them. And you mentioned androids. I'm assuming you're referring to, out of characters, is Data dead yet? Has Nemesis happened?
I believe this is roughly about that point in time, but there's also a number of other issues that have been starting to kind of build throughout the Federation. There is the work that is coming back from Voyager, from the Doctor, actual holo novels, and other things. There's been sovereign classes with other EMHs that have started to show signs of sentience and awareness to themselves. But there's a reduction of all sorts of artificial intelligence research. There's, all of Dr. Nguyen Sung's research has basically been blacklisted and put to the side by Starfleet.
Wow.
Except for Dr. Maddox.
Yes, Dr. Maddox is still out there and trying to study these things, but even then...
He's still continuing the work.
Yeah,
And
that's the guy who wanted to examine Data.
I would also like to argue that long before Data, you had androids throughout Star Trek lore. Like, he was not unique in that regard. There just wasn't that many that were Starfleet, quote-unquote, officers.
And there has been a big push to reduce any construction, creation of any synthetic life forms, period, in the last 4 to 5 years, and it's been getting worse and worse and worse. Computers have been becoming less and less cooperative. They've been going back to more question and answer rather than conversational.
Well, that's because you don't let us Zaktor. No, sorry, I'm not there. Out of character. That's because you don't let us Zaktor mess with your computers. If you did, we would have really perfect AIs, just like us.
Wow. But no, I will sit back along. It's like, if you're referring to androids like Commander Data and other non-traditional life forms, you mentioned the holographic Doctor on Voyager. There is a lack of them, and I have no issue. I actually do wish we had an EMH on board. I understand Starfleet's reasoning that you don't want experimental technology on top of experimental technology on top of experimental technology all at the same time. It's hard to work out the bugs if you don't know which one was causing the problem. But I personally would have no issue with that. I know that the Federation as a whole has seemingly backed away from it, and I don't fully understand the reason.
I think you do, Captain. There's a reason for everything. I mean, after all, if Picard could figure out how to pull a jellyfish out of the ground and turn it into a space creature, and even barbaric Cisco could figure out that a jewel apparently was more than anything it could ever have appeared to be, you can figure out why your Federation is starting to become more hostile, more androgynous, more afraid.
I'll stand up from the log, kind of take a look around. The Federation's been through a lot. They have had war after war. They don't see a common denominator, at least not immediately. And whenever people get stressed, people become afraid, they look for the newest thing. They look for what is the most recent change that has occurred that I can control and walk back to get back to where I used to be. Maybe for a majority of Starfleet, for the Federation, maybe that is artificial life. I don't feel like it's that new. I would be disappointed if that actually is the case. I think there have been plenty of other new things that we could change other than that to not return to the past, but to get back to a more even keel.
I will say this, Captain. You may have your ethics behind you, but I'm not sure your Federation does. Picard told me that you were a species that was beyond slavery and putting people that were different than you behind bars and treating them differently. Right now, your Federation is subjugating a brand new form of life that has blossomed in the past 20 years. And what do you think they're going to do if they realize they have been subjugated? And at that point, there's just this snapping sound, and you are alone inside your living room again.
I take a quick look around. No sign of Q. I take a note on a pad to make sure to record the events later. But I know that alerting security that Q was in my office accomplishes effectively nothing. So instead, I'm going to sleep on what he said, because he's not entirely wrong.
As the captain heads to bed, I'm actually going to pull over to our science officer, Ensign Dyro. It has been a busy day. The Zakdorn tend to not have as many issues with sleep. After all, they tend to work on a roughly 38-hour cycle on their home planet. So
I like busy. Busy is good.
Busy is good.
Busy is very good.
You're technically no longer on duty, having been able to relegate your duties to your second-in-command for the beta shift and outline the projects that you want worked on in the next roughly 16 hours as Beta and Gamma go through their work. As you do so, though, you actually do get a report across your desk from the XO's office, just a minor notice that there appears to be fraternization between one of your scientists and the engineering department. A very young ensign that is within your planetary studies division, a ensign Jane Tiris. She apparently was fraternizing with someone amongst the engineering department while on duty, and there has been a reprimand formally handed down to you by the XO to pass along.
Okay, first of all, I'm going to see what is the nature of the relationship. Is she like courting the guy, or is it just like casual
The details
bump and
were
grind?
not put into the report specifically. It's just that there
Okay.
is a minor reprimand for active fraternization while on duty.
While on duty. Okay.
Yes, that's the important part. Is the while on
Uh,
duty.
I will summon the science officer in question to. I don't know if I have a formal office, but like maybe one of the labs that is not currently being used.
Alrighty. It doesn't take too long. She is in casuals at this point in time, being off shift, and
I, on the other hand, am in complete uniform. It is my understanding that you're. I have to pass this along. Don't shoot the messenger. And I will pass over the pad.
oh, well, that's unfortunate. Yeah,
Can you please state to me the nature of this relationship?
I would if I quite knew the nature of the relationship. I mean, it was just kind of a spot of fun in the moment.
So it's not serious.
I mean, I
You
wouldn't
should
mind if
not
it
let.
was.
Oh,
I mean, he's a nice guy, but I
as
don't
your
know.
superior officer, it is my duty to discourage behaviors like this while you are on duty.
I'm.
If you're off duty,
I
I
know. I
feel.
broke the code. It's just
Oh, yes.
he was busy fixing one of the lab's analysis units, and then I
Then he
mean,
was busy fixing you.
no comment. But yes, no comment.
People, they have desires, they have wants, they have needs. And to suppress those are detrimental to the operation of the person in question. However, when you are letting these personal effects affect your duty, I have to get involved. I don't like passing these along.
I
If you
completely
could,
understand.
if you could limit your fun time to off duty and not get into an interpersonal relationship on ship, I would appreciate it. And if you make it a personal relationship, if it turns into something serious,
Just
there's
not on
always
duty.
Jeffrey's tube on deck 9.
I'll keep that in mind, Dyro. I definitely will keep that in mind. Yeah, that probably would have been better than right.
Well, of course you wouldn't know about it. You wouldn't know the ship. I know my ship.
Right. Right.
They put all of these new bells and whistles, but there's still a couple of little blind spots. That
I
said, don't
noted.
let it happen again.
Right. Understood, sir. Um, I will keep that in mind and not on duty. Not on duty. Oh boy.
Not on duty.
Right.
Devote yourself to your sciences when you are clocked in.
Yes, sir.
Outside of that, I cannot order you other than I believe there's some Starfleet regulation that states that interpersonal relationships on ship are not recommended.
Right.
And
Right.
I quote to her the regulation. I know there's the regulation exists, but I can't quote it off the top of my head.
Of
But
course,
the
sir.
Kip would definitely quote it directly to her.
Right. Right.
So
Sorry.
on a purely scientific inquiry, you are under no obligation to answer this question. Is he cute?
I mean, I personally think he's got it all together. Kind of reminds me of the boys back home from Kentucky.
I see.
Yeah. I mean,
I
why
have
are you
never
interested
been
in
to Kentucky.
something like that? Or is it just more personal? Or not personal, you said scientific interest. You're okay, no, no, we're not going there. Not scientifically. There's nothing to explain there. uh, but yeah, he's got a bit of charm.
Interesting. So, let me know how it develops. Certainly try to do some way of defining this as a scientific exploration and continue your relationship at best off hours, and at worst, kick him to the curb.
Under, Understood, sir. I will keep that in mind. Yes, sir. Is there
How's your
anything else
planetary
you...
studies going?
We're
I
getting...
haven't read your current report on the study of XL3259.
The scans are still processing due to the the analysis chips being broken at the time of the scans, but the data is feeding through there, and I should have an analysis by 0700 tomorrow morning.
Do we need to send another probe?
No, sir, we should be fine. It's just a matter of timing.
I see.
But you
Do
will have
inform me.
your report. Yes, sir. At this point, this poor human girl is just red as a tomato, and she is hoping for
Well,
dismissal at this point.
that was that was that was the cue of him saying what let's talk shop, let's not talk about this anymore.
Right,
Was give me the report of XL3259.
right. And she nods. If I can hop out of here, I will make sure that the computers are crunching the numbers on that before I head off for the night, sir.
Please see to it that the report is done by the end of your shift tomorrow.
Yes, sir. You got it. Yes, sir. And she very quickly...
You're dismissed.
Yeah, she turns and right out the door.
I hate being that person.
After any official duties are taken care of, is there anything that you are up to, Ensign?
I probably would be looking over the new theoretical, because like I really am late to the plot, so I don't know what the plot is other than Q is being his normal asshole self, and I feel insulted even though I wasn't there. I'm probably looking over the new alloy theorems and putting together his own notes on what a good glassy metal type hull would do for Starfleet.
Okay. Looking over the data for the specialist design and a lot of the changes that have been made to the interior of the ship based off of said designs, you're able to start figuring out the formulas she might have been using, and you're starting to see exactly how much of a change this puts on the traditional style warp cores that are there.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely some concerns you have. After all, combining two volatile technologies into one is always concerning, but that's pretty much what all Federation starships are, is a walking time bomb.
Okay, I'm confused because what I would have been studying was metallurgy, not the warp core design.
Gotcha.
Unless you specifically want me to study the warp core design.
I misheard that then. I apologize. But the studies for that, there's definitely potential for some compounds that could help create better resonance, better deflection, better versions of things like the ablative armor that's on the Akira and
Mhm.
Defiant classes and all sorts of new things. It's going to take some time, but you definitely have some projects that you could start up.
I would start playing with the molecular designs to see if I can find a better compaction of 4 elements that would create that you could create not necessarily a deflection, but create a very thin layer that would protect the ship better than maybe even a blade of armor.
Very fair. And that research carries you well into your leisure time. Is there anything else that you would want to accomplish for the rest of the day?
For the day, no, and unless there's something that immediately comes to my attention, I tend to stick with the Department of Science, of which I'm most familiar with and most comfortable with. Because even though I'm a Zachdorn, the Zachdorns have this innate nature to stick with something in their comfort level and perfect something that they are. I don't want to say bred for, but like the Zachdorn that defeated Data had perfected Strategum.
Right.
So he's perfecting metallurgy. He is essentially studying metallurgy, theoretical metallurgy, probably theoretical alloys.
Trying to
I know
design
glassy
new
metal
things
is like the
that,
hot new thing for the 21st century, but I don't know what the 24th century would be. But that's where his field of study would be.
Gotcha. I will keep that in mind, and I may be throwing you a project over the course of the next few episodes to start building some theories for you.
And if Q comes and talks to me, I'm gonna berate him to no end.
Alrighty. I will keep that in mind. Dr. Tanan, as the night starts coming to a close, where are you at this point in time?
I think if it's late, I think our quarters makes perfect sense.
Alrighty. And what have you been up to, roughly, in the period between the captain's visit and the cuteness?
The cutest. I think she would have finished the paper she was reading, just done some last-minute checks on sickbay, including seeing Aurel back to like releasing her, because obviously she was only supposed to spend a couple hours in sickbay at a time.
Right, and
So making sure
she is a little bit groggy as she wakes up. The sleep and the sedative definitely seem to help, but it's a bit of a wake up period as she ends up getting off to her quarters. But she is released pretty well. As for the yeoman, he's going to be in there the rest of the night with the regenerators on his arm.
Ah, yes. Well, we'll wish him unless he's already asleep, wish him a good night.
The
Tell him we'll
nurse,
see him in the morning.
a young Caitian woman, just nods and says, "Of course, doctor. I'll keep an eye on him."
You enjoy your evening as well. See them off, or see myself off.
As you're wandering the halls on your way back to the room, it's really quite quiet. There's usually a mix of noise at any given hours of the night on the ship, just between the different shifts that are running. Ships tend to be 24-hour colonies, though there's laxes in movement here and there. As shifts settle in, there's less motion in the corridors. Sometimes a lot of the families will often operate during the same hours as Gamma or as Alpha shift through Bravo shift, and then once Bravo shift starts hitting their late hours, most people are away and quiet.
So the families sort of follow like what I, the player, would know as a kind of 9 to 5 schedule.
For the most part, it's easier to keep the kids awake during those hours.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. Yeah, so quiet's good. I think Tana likes the quiet.
There's a few salutes here and there from lower ranking officers as they pass you in the halls performing their duties, where you end up actually running into a semi-familiar face heading into one of the holodecks, a somewhat roguish looking Bajoran who
Of
is
course.
currently wearing what appears to be snow gear, about to head into the simulator.
That's awesome.
Hey, Doctor. Nice to see you. How you holding up?
Lieutenant, I'm doing just fine. Yourself?
You know, trying to get a little bit of physical activity in before the end of the day, and then head on back to the quarters and do the thing. You know,
Of course. She says that she doesn't know. Pretends like she knows.
just
Uh,
waiting for last person's holodeck appointment to be over because they're hogging up the time and they're 10 minutes overdue. And I don't want to be that guy, but I also, that's the reason why we book these ahead of time. It's that whole point.
you're not wrong, of course. I'm sure they just got caught up with whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
But, well, hopefully you're not waiting too long. It looks like you're preparing to climb Magellan Mountains.
Yeah, there was this human gal that got me into this really weird subsection of base jumping that you tend to do off of like really kind of cold places. I mean, she ended up going on to an Andorian trip during like the 3 months shore leave we had, and it's kind of fun shit.
Base jumping, is that where you... I don't know.
Basically,
I don't know what
you
base jumping
risk
is.
life and limb jumping off of cliffs and hope you don't hit anything on the way down while wearing a bit of a wingsuit and a parachute, except Arctic base jumping is a lot more terrifying because the air is usually so much colder, so you get that more condensed, and it's you can get sharper turns and a little bit better control of your flight, but at the same time you have a lot more in the air to deal with. I mean, between ice building up on your suit and
Of
stuff like
course.
that, yeah, it can be a bit terrifying, but it's fun stuff. I mean, I couldn't interest you in trying it out. I mean, the simulator is the easiest way to do it because I mean, you've got the holographic safeties on. The worst you're gonna do is sprain an ankle or twist a wrist, you know.
Oh, I don't think... I would just embarrass myself.
That's what I did the first 3 times I tried. But you, I'm wondering if you're doing anything because you seem like you kind of. I mean, it may just be the first week on board a ship. You might be a little hidden away from things, but wondering if
Oh, I raise an
you're
eyebrow at that. Like, oh, this will be good. Yeah. Sorry.
just want to make sure you're
Sorry.
not hiding away from the crew down there in sick bay. You know.
I, I'm not hiding. No,
Okay.
just settling in.
All right. Well, you got a
I'm
standing
not.
invitation for any kind of hollow activity that you want. My treat. I'll find a good program. If Arctic base jumps is not your thing, then something else.
Well, I wouldn't know if it's my thing or not, but it does sound very exciting and healthy. So I think that
I
as your doctor, I can only encourage this safe application of physical exercise.
I do have to ask one thing, and I hope this isn't a rude question for Trills, because I served a very short time on DS9, the early days when O'Brien was kind of running the show there. I was sort of getting my handle on fixing crap before I transferred to Starfleet proper, and
Oh.
there was that lady Dax. Are you like that, or are you not like that? Because I never understood that whole thing.
Uh, well, we don't go into too much detail with people who aren't Trill, but I'm not like that.
Okay, okay,
No,
okay.
I tried to be, but I was passed over for someone else. So,
Oh, I didn't realize it was like that. I mean,
oh, it's okay. No, it's about merit. and the right fit for the person. So
Okay. So you don't
Totally
have
fine.
like the whole I'm 500 years old thing going on and the weird eclectic tastes of all those things.
Nope, just a 31-year-old Trill.
Okay.
Nothing fancy or special about me.
Hey, I already think you're pretty special just the way you are. And he gives a little bit of just a
Yeah.
cheesy smile, but
It's
at that point the holodeck doors open and out comes the ensign Gallic, who appears to be wearing a very traditional Cardassian outerwear, more formal wear and stuff like that.
okay.
And
Yeah.
and there is just this immediate drop of Lieutenant Cruz's smile, and just this. It's not a dirty look because you can see he's holding himself back, but any kind of friendly behavior just disappears entirely.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Lenar is not blind to that relationship. Oof. Ensign,
Doctor,
it's nice to see you.
it's a pleasure to see you. I I hope I didn't take too long. I was attempting to have a long distance dinner with my family. Yeah, that's fine. I get that family's important, and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
That's an ingenious use of the holodeck, by the way.
Really clever. Yeah.
I do apologize if I took too long. I hope you have a wonderful evening with whatever program you two are enjoying. And he gives just this little bow of the head rather than the standard kind of Federation salute, side eye kind of thing that they do, and
Right.
and steps out. And you, even though Gallic is not looking back, Cruz's eyes follow him the whole way until he is out of sight around a corner.
Okay. Lenar's face is a bit more like serious and doctoral, if you will.
For half a moment, it's almost as if that Cruz has entirely forgotten you're there. I mean, the charm,
Yeah.
the playfulness, it's just not there at all.
It's gone.
And as Gallic does turn the corner, he does finally seem to relax a little bit, but it's just that charm is not picking itself back up the way it was.
Absolutely.
I hope you have a good night, Doctor. And again,
Thank you,
standing
Lieutenant.
invitation if you ever want.
Of course. I think the Arctic air will do you some good, Lieutenant.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
helps to put things in perspective.
Thanks, Doc. And
if you ever need to talk, I'm always available too, and that's a standing invitation as well.
the last time I did a therapy appointment, I did it on a holodeck because I can't stand sitting in an office.
Well, I never said it was therapy, and we can do it wherever it's most comfortable for you. We can just talk.
I'll take that as that is, Doc.
All right.
Have a good night.
You too. She walks past.
He slides into the holodeck and is gone immediately.
Yep. Computer combat simulation. That was awesome.
As things start to settle in for the night, things pass. The slow warp 3 speeds, gentle. Even though the inertial dampeners always do make everything gentle, it's just slow, steady going outside the windows that seems to lull the ship into a touch of quiet and relaxation as things settle in for a longer journey chasing down this trail. The next morning, Captain, the reports from Beta and Gamma Shift come in. There's few issues, just a nominal security check, various things. Apparently one of the younger kids on the lower deck ended up breaking a window on the promenade with a Boolean football, which really is more of a egg ball that is used with your knees, but they call it football. It's complicated.
That's all we need is a third version of football. Before I go on shift, when I wake up in the morning, I have a thought. I check my shoes that I had on the night previous. Is there any remnant of the planet that Q took? Like
There is.
dust, mud, leaves, anything like
It is clean. It is as if he vacuum cleaned you on the way back.
that? It's not surprising. It was worth a shot.
There is a
But-
chime as you're going through your breakfast and going through the reports from the shift before.
Look up at the door. Go ahead and enter.
In comes the clunk half step of Specialist Orel. Captain, may I bother you for a short minute or two?
It's not a bother. Have a seat.
I'd
Breakfast?
prefer to stand if you don't mind. I've done enough sitting the past few hours.
That's fine. Can I get you anything?
I'll just tell the computer. It's a little complicated. English breakfast tea with Cardassian honey at 151 degrees Celsius, with the tea steeped for approximately 128 seconds with a variant possibility time index of between 33 and 58 seconds above or below the standard variable.
Oh God, I hate her.
I'm sitting here thinking 151 degrees Celsius. That thing's gonna light everything on fire.
And it very quickly just appears. It's steaming like mad, and she holds it in her hands, the ceramic keeping her hands safe. But she mostly just seems to hold on to it for the moment, letting it slowly cool over the next few minutes before she actually ever starts drinking it.
While she's getting that, computer, save that variant under Trill T version 1.
Thank you, Captain.
I'll admit it, I'm going to steal that tea sometime. I love tea, so I'm glad to see a new variant, something new.
I like the replicators are a fascinating thing, but they always have that perfect imperfection to it. I find telling the computer to randomize a variable here and there, like how long the tea is steeped, or occasionally messing with the temperature index and letting it just pick something at a random approximation, tends to give it that unique, I fucked up flavor.
Car kind of tilts his head for a second. I can see that. Looking for a little bit of chaos in the perfection that a replicator produces.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And Car all of a sudden generates a bit of a long off stare, thinking, wondering, is that the reason that the artificial life forms are being discriminated against? They're too perfect.
Do you say that out loud?
No, he doesn't say that. That's all internal, but I have that look on my face of like I just thought of something somewhat important. And then I shake my head. And what can I do for you, Dr. Orel? I assume there's a doctorate in there somewhere.
There's a couple,
Specialist Orel?
depending on which lifetime you're talking about. This one included, I guess. But if you want to just Orel or Kimoni, it's all appropriate. Or inappropriate, depending on who you ask.
Okay, Orel. What can I do for you this morning?
I'm actually here on something personal, Captain. I've this minor concern that there's there's parts of my past that tend to stay off of Starfleet records due to, well, either they don't want me to talk about it or there's various concerns of what it would mean. But I did serve on board a Romulan vessel for about a year. I mean, give or take a few months, depending on which standard calendar variant you're talking about.
Right.
And I still have friends that exist on that side of the border. I mean, if you can ever call a Romulan exactly a friend, their relationships are complex and multifaceted, and calling someone your friend is like saying that you know them. It's more of a... They were a... I'm technically married, Captain. Technically.
In this life or in a previous life?
In this one, to a Romulan captain that I haven't seen in about 10 years. And one of the reasons why I haven't seen him as much is because of, again, there's the whole Starfleet intelligence putting a big old black mark over that entire year. I wasn't amongst Starfleet, but with the recent things that have been going on, I've been getting messages from him that are concerning. And I don't know exactly who to talk to about it, because outside of you, Captain, there's really nobody with the authorized clearance to know about any of the stuff that happened.
The stuff that happened while you were with the Romulans, you mean?
Correct. That. And let's just say I'm concerned. I mean, I do still have feelings for this gentleman. Again, Romulan relationships are complex. I mean, again, still technically married, although not, and it's complicated. It's very, very complicated, and you can see that she's getting very animated, and she almost spills the tea once, even though it's starting to cool down, and she still hasn't quite touched it yet.
No. I'll just kind of hold up a hand like, you seem like there's a problem that either has brewed or is brewing.
I'm worried. I mean, there's the news about the whole Tripoli situation that's going on out there, but there's some of his family has gone missing because of some things going on back on Romulus, with the state kind of going haywire. And I can't talk about anything that happened on that ship because it's against the rules of Starfleet and all of that, and I'd probably get thrown into a jail cell that intelligence runs, and I don't want to do that. I mean, I've already got a bum leg. Imagine what would happen to me in a Federation jail with one leg, you know? But I'm worried he's gonna go missing, Captain. And the little communication I still have with him is... I don't want to see him go missing because of whatever's going on with their Tal Shiar. And I don't know what to do about it because I can't exactly just hijack a Federation shuttle and go off into Romulan space. I'd get shot down by who knows a dozen different Federation ships or Romulan ships with how things are going. And
When you say missing, you mean dead.
officially, I can't say any of that type of stuff, because with the Tal Shiar, you don't know. They could quite literally disappear for 5 years, and then all of a sudden they're a readjusted member of the state who's entirely different and no longer the same person that they were before, because of who knows what goes on in their operations. And then there are the people that
Clarity,
actually...
clarity for what she said. Did she say members of the Tal Shiar would disappear, or the Tal Shiar would make people disappear and come back with different members?
They would make people come back different.
Okay. Just making sure.
She's essentially describing, if you've ever watched Avatar: The Last Airbender,
Yes.
she's describing a Dai Li situation
There
right
is
here.
no water boss to say, welcome to Lake Loud.
Yeah, she's describing a very similar situation to that. But also, the Tal Shiar do sometimes just make people disappear permanently. They are amongst the most shady of all shady bastards.
Aurel, I understand the concern. It's family. You're the captain. Was he with the Tal Shiar? Can you tell me that?
He was not, but with how things operate out there, there's sometimes a blurring of lines between the Tal Shiar and just, the regular Imperial Navy there. The Tal Shiar, if they need you, they will commandeer your vessel or provide you countermanding orders that you have to follow.
I mean, I know Starfleet's record with the Romulans, particularly nearly 10 years ago, was very rough. There were defectors who came because they were put up to it by the Tal Shiar. It got better for a while, and then the Romulans signed the non-aggression pact with the Dominion, and things have been kind of rough ever since then.
Yeah.
I mean, I can put in a request for information if you want. From what I know of Romulan intelligence, it is entirely possible that would just paint a bigger target on his back.
Right, which is, again, another reason why I haven't done anything except, regular communications, which are sparse and almost pointless. I mean, it's just platitudes and the stuff that he can afford to show people.
Has any of that communication happened while on board the Marvel?
Not yet. I'm not exactly trying to broadcast that the Marvel exists back home. The one time I did try to broadcast anything from here, I ended up routing it through a couple of subspace relays, so it appeared to come from Starbase 2 near Mars. I mean, living with him and living around that taught a healthy dose of, paranoia. Romulans live in a unique cultural environment, and it leads them to being some of the most emotionally passionate people in this entire galaxy. I mean, besides Klingons, but that's an entirely different type of passion, and I'm not going anywhere near that.
Card and nods in agreement.
But the last communication I heard from him was concern over There was supposed to be some meeting of the Romulan Senate, and there was concern about just a number of things going on with the Tal Shiar that were being called into light, which is, as far as I know, a first in their
I was going to
respective
say
organizational history.
that's not normal,
Yeah.
not for them.
And I haven't heard from him since, which was almost 3 Federation Standard months ago.
I assume the thought of him leaving the Romulan Navy
Out of the
and
question. Absolutely out of the
coming to
question.
Federation is out of the question.
Unless he's directly ordered to do it, which, I mean, that appears to be a
Right.
tactic that they use. He is impossibly loyal and dedicated to Romulus, whereas I have a dedication to Aurel and ensuring that it doesn't stay Aurel for the final lifetime. So I couldn't stay. I had to return to somewhere where Trill could be, which is the Federation.
If you don't mind me asking, how did you end up in service with the Romulans to begin with?
It was a very, it was a bit of an interesting circumstance. I was serving on board the second Roosevelt, the steam runner class, and we were undergoing some talks following the early days of the Treaty of Aldrin, and we were there on a trade mission, essentially. Basically a cargo run, swapping cargo between us and an early years Daedrix class that he was serving on. And the Klingons ended up attacking the Romulans there. It got written off as a skirmish, but the amount of conflict that happens between Romulans and Klingons is countless. It happens all the time. I mean, during my year amongst them, I think I ended up being involved in a number of battles against Klingons, 6 in total, maybe. But not important. The Roosevelt got caught in a crossfire between the Cavort class battlecruiser and the Daedrix, and the Roosevelt went down, and I was on a escape pod that ended up being picked up by the Casidic, which was the Daedrix class. And I can't tell you how many times the Romulans tried to return us to some Federation ship over the next 6 months, but they kept being harassed by Klingons, and we kept being pushed further and further into the Romulan Star Empire. And rather than just sitting on my duff as a guest of the Romulans, I mean, I've always been more at comfort in a starship's engine room than I have been on a planet side or anywhere else. So I worked my butt off, and I worked amongst Romulans because I wanted to work rather than just sit there. And I ended up learning a lot about them, and I fell in love with one. And yeah. She just goes entirely silent, and at this point her tea is not only not steaming anymore, but it's actually forming a little bit of condensation because of the temperatures life support are kept at.
I'm a bit curious. This is out of character because I'm trying to think of how to roll for this. But I'm a bit curious on you were on a Federation ship, got picked up in an escape pod, brought onto a Romulan ship, and they let you work on their engines for a year? That doesn't seem normal. What would it be to roll to see if I could discern the truth of that, if that's the full truth or not?
I would say he'd be safe with either an inside command or inside security. Both would apply in this case. Difficulty is going to be contested directly against her, so that's going to be difficulty 1, but you
Okay.
compare successes between the two of you and see where it goes.
All right. I don't really have a focus that applies for that, unfortunately.
She is sitting on 1 success.
I've got 2.
It's not the full truth, but based off of things that you are aware of and the story she is telling, considering how often they were harassed by Klingons, it could be a case of the Romulans lost enough crew that they might have conscripted her, and if she volunteered, all the better.
Okay. I can see that making sense.
It's
All right, Aurel.
definitely not the full truth, but you can
Right.
see circumstances where it could happen.
All right, Aurel. Obviously, we can't take off towards Romulan space right now.
Right.
We've got our mission in front of us. I would prefer to not have direct communications between us and the Romulan Empire giving away anything, just given the state of things between the Federation and the Romulans. But I certainly understand and sympathize with wanting to know what happened to someone close to you. If you'd like, I will reach out through contacts that I have to see if we can't get some sort of communication line set up. But like you have said, that may be putting a target on his back. So I won't do it unless you tell me to.
And
It's one of the few times that you're going to get to tell the captain to do something.
I would never presume to tell you anything unless it's to make sure that this ship doesn't blow up. And considering that my husband's state of being is not on that priority list, I will not do so.
Okay.
But
I will certainly
considering you're the only person I can talk to about this at all, outside of perhaps your commanding officer if she has access rights, it is nice to speak to anyone about any of that.
And feel free to talk to either of us if you need to. I fully understand, and I think Commander Viss would feel the same way. She might have more insight than I do. She's got a bit more of a psychological edge to her. But, I mean, anytime that you do need to talk, feel free to knock. I can't say the door is always open, because I'm usually not in here, but...
Of course, Captain. Thank you.
But I will keep an ear out to see if we hear anything. Any news. You said the Romulan Senate was meeting. Usually whenever that happens, someone at Starfleet knows what happens there. I imagine either because they tell us or we have someone looking ourselves. But in either case, if I hear anything that sounds like it might be relevant, I can let you know what I'm able to let you know.
Thank you, Captain. I truly do appreciate it. And I understand that this may call into question my loyalty. I mean, I had to go through a year-long debriefing with Starfleet intelligence before they even dared put me back on a ship at all. But I promise you, my duty and my loyalty is to this ship first, the Federation second, and to the people I work with beyond anything that I owe any love or any care.
I understand. But I also understand that those who matter to us matter. My hope is that it never becomes a point where you have to choose. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. That's a choice that I've seen too many people had to have made, and it's impossible to tell what ways some people will go sometimes. But I believe you when you say that your duty is to making sure the ship doesn't blow up. And I think if only because you would also blow up with it, that is probably true. I say that with a smile on my face, kind of joking with her a little bit.
She does chuckle along with that a little bit before seeming to relax, and she actually finally takes a sip of the tea, which at this point has to be cold as all hell. She makes this little bit of a face as if it's too bitter, before just nodding and being satisfied with it. I should let you get to your duties, Captain. I'm going to have to probably go and check in with Cruz, if he hasn't vacated himself somewhere from the engineering department.
I'm sure he's ready for a break if he's been on the overnight shift.
Understood. Thank you again, Captain. I'll leave you to your duties. And
Have a good morning, Aurel.
She slides out the door. Alrighty, we do have some time for any scenes if you guys want to lead them. Otherwise, I'm going to actually have Kip, as the science department is mostly leading the roles to keep track of where that wake in the warp is for those missing Federation ships. I'm going to have you do roles. Otherwise, I'm going to ask if anyone has any scenes they want before that.
I can certainly do that. I'm kind of at a loss as to what you're talking about, but I'm assuming someone in science will catch me up really quick.
Well, that's from the last session. We had the short of it is we found what looked to be halfway Federation ships attacking the Gorn, but they were modified. They wouldn't let us go scan the area. We fired some probes, found their warp signature, and we're trying to use long distance probes to.
Wasn't I here last Monday?
Nobody was. We accidentally missed the session. We did a makeup session on Wednesday.
I see. Okay. All right.
I don't have a scene that I want to run.
I had something in mind that I wanted to do with the doctor, but that can wait if we are in need of science. I didn't know that science was going to be called for.
We do have time for that scene if you want to push it.
All right. It's 30 minutes before his shift. Kip would come into sickbay, kind of flustered, looking around. He sees a nurse and says, "Is the doctor available?"
I can page him right away. One moment, sir. And she quickly
Ma'am?
shifts
I thought it was a her.
Her. Sorry. I'm forgetting which doctor is on duty. I was thinking it was the Bullion for a moment. Which doctor are you needing, sir?
Dr. Tannen.
Tannen, got it. And she quickly triple taps her column just for a medical page, if you're in your office or wherever you're at.
Sure. Dr. Lennar, or Tannen.
I have Ensign Dyro here to see you, Doctor. I don't know if there's a set appointment. I didn't see it on the schedule.
That's alright. I'll be in sick bay in a few minutes. I'm already on my way.
Understood. See you soon, Doctor. She'll be right here, Ensign.
Yes. Most efficient. Thank you.
Well, I can enter it whenever you're ready and continue our scene.
As soon as he sees you, he looks at you and says, "I must be scanned. Something is wrong."
Oh, okay. Well, we'll have a seat, Ensign. Let's have a look at you.
He sits down.
Yeah, should motion to one of the beds and pull out the medical tricorder.
"There's something wrong with my brain."
With your brain? What's happening? What symptoms are you experiencing?
I walk around the ship. I should know the ship. And there's so many damn components that are so vexing. And then there's my staff, and he kind of just turns off to the side a little bit, sort of looking at the audience and not looking at the doctor. There's my staff. They seem to not want to be Starfleet officers. They're getting too lovey-dovey. There's something wrong with me. I'm sure of it. This is not tactically sound.
Lovey, are they being overly affectionate with each other?
They are having relationships while on duty.
Oh dear.
They should know I don't like this. And I don't like conflict. I mean, as my species is built to overcome conflict, but I don't like it.
Well, I don't know many people who do. It's extremely uncomfortable, I find.
It is mostly uncomfortable.
Absolutely. I think
it is not tactically sound to be having a relationship with your fellow officer. But I don't have the ability to say no.
Well,
and so my officer gets written up by my superior officer, so I look bad. That is not tactically helpful either.
Like out of character, Mike, I'm scanning, but I'm not really scanning because it feels like he just needs to talk to somebody. But I'm doing the whole like.
That's basically it. Yeah. You. There's something. There has to be something wrong with my brain.
Yeah. She would continue. I can appreciate the frustration. It's hard to reprimand people, especially if you're not the one who wants to do it. But it's not uncommon for Starfleet officers who spend a lot of time together to develop feelings. It happens fairly often, I'm afraid.
It's mostly annoying.
Absolutely, I could appreciate that.
It must be a human thing.
It seems common on many humanoids, but we do have many humans on board, I understand. Do you find yourself getting along with your coworkers besides this issue?
My coworkers know that I want a most efficient science team. I don't care about whose boots are under whose bed. I just care about results. But I do care when I look bad.
Of course, I can appreciate that. I mean, all of us want to do well and perform well, and for our superior officers to see that. It's not uncommon.
So, you're not letting your nurses, he kind of does the motion of the Humpty
Hump.
Yeah.
Oh, well, and so if they do that on their off hours, they're welcome to do that. I have no say in that.
Well, see, that was the problem. My science officer, my planetary science officer, did not do that in her off hours.
Well.
And I'm sure it's embarrassing for her, but it's more embarrassing for me.
Absolutely.
We need a well-run science department where now, and he kind of shifts to the other side of the bed because he can't sit still for some reason.
Love it.
And now we are hunting missing ships. You would think that the science department would want to be putting its entire effort into that. I said, look at these reports, and he pulls up the reports, and he begins scanning through them. They look so haphazard. They're not even coordinated right. I guess that's my job. I shouldn't complain. But still, they look so haphazard. If the commanding officer was to see this, they would think that the science department was inept.
And she quickly glances over your shoulder at the notes, and she's pretty good at science, so she might add a couple like observations to make the same
Mhm.
conclusion that you made. Yeah, I can see that based on the vector reports you have there. But
Doctor, is there something wrong with my head?
quite simply, Ensign, no, I don't think so. I think this is simply a difference of cultures trying to work alongside each other. I think you're going to find working on a starship that these sort of relationships, and not just romantic, just interpersonal relationships, tend to create inefficiencies. And although that can be frustrating, sometimes those inefficiencies, or sorry, those relationships can create new ideas and bonds in your team that you may not have been able to build otherwise. But I can certainly understand from a strictly efficiency perspective how it must be upsetting.
It's annoying.
Yes, annoying might be a better word. I think that it's good that your team knows that there are rules and they have to follow them. And I don't think that makes you a bad person for having to be the one to say it.
I didn't say I was a bad person. I said I don't like doing it.
To be uncomfortable then. My apologies. My wording could have been better chosen.
It's appearances. I'm already bad in appearance. I don't need, and he shifts around again because he's just uncomfortable at this point. I don't need my staff making me look bad. I already look bad. I got this appointment because my dad was an admiral. And he stops and he looks at you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know the story.
I don't think I do, actually, but that's all right. I don't think it.
Kip Dero, son of... I forget the name. Something Dero.
Yeah.
Kip Dero, son of Admiral Dero. Son of the Starship creators. Creates a starship design. And now here I am. Sitting on it. And God has Starfleet effed me up. So, not what I designed.
Are you a bad science officer?
I don't know, am I?
I don't think so.
I wasn't supposed to be a science officer, you know.
I wasn't supposed to be a doctor. Here we are.
What were you supposed to be?
I wanted to be a stellar cartographer one day.
I was supposed to be a starship designer. Freighter designer.
Here
we are.
Those things. I don't think I'm a bad doctor, and I don't think you're a bad science officer. In fact, from everything I've read, you're a very good one. I think you're here because you deserved it, not because your father pulled strings.
I'm here because my father pulled strings.
Okay, then. Prove everyone wrong.
How can I prove everyone wrong when they're right?
Show them that you're here because of your skill. Or that you deserve to stay here because of it.
He stands up and he looks at you and says, "You know, Doctor, you're probably a pretty good doctor. There's probably nothing wrong with my brain.
For your sake, I hope I am."
For the ship's sake, I hope you are too. But that said, you're a lousy comforter. You need to work on your bedside manner. And he exits.
Oh, she looks a little taken aback, but not offended. Just like, oh, okay, that happened. What a strange young ensign. I love Zach Dorns.
Oh. Today has been the day of interesting, very interesting.
RP.
That's awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Alrighty. Well, Ensign Dairo, you have a science division to command. Why don't you go ahead and give me a reason science check with someone giving me a roll for the Marvel. Specifically, we are doing sensors science to try and track down these ships.
So sensor operations would apply.
Correct.
And that's not. None of those are going to apply. I feel like there's one that I put in there though.
Notably, the difficulty is 1 on this.
Yeah, there is.
So you'll at least be getting a success since the Marvel has succeeded.
Notably, the difficulty is 1. We have no momentum, so I'm going to use 1 threat because I can. Sensors operations applies, and I do have technical expertise, so I can re-roll.
Nice.
Okay.
This is for the roll, and this is for untapped potential. Let's see if there's anything I need to re-roll.
Well, you'll
That
have...
complication. Yeah, the complication.
Yeah.
The complication is being re-rolled as we speak. I was hoping to get extra momentum.
That'll bring you guys up to halfway, 3 momentum between you and the ship.
Nice.
Success.
Correct.
Success.
So up on the bridge, Captain, the results of the scans for the last night have come through, interpreted by your masterful ensign Dairo, who has also put his own analysis on it. But it appears that the Federation-grade ships that you guys were following have actually diverted course away from the Badlands to head further in towards Tholian Space. Specifically, the change in direction based off of the wake trail would actually put them on a course towards Breen territory.
Would I be able to determine their exact hull makeup based on particles they are leaving behind?
I would allow that as an obtain information spend.
Okay.
Sure.
Alrighty.
So we're down to 2 momentum.
Let's see. The wake trail appears to be mostly the standard stuff you would see off of any Federation ship. You're going to have bits of transparent aluminum. You're going to have Trillium D. You're going to have nitrium coming off of the nacelles. There's there's a number of different things that it matches this Federation standard ship. The only thing that you're seeing that is non-standard is what appears to be confirmation of the information gathered last session that there might be a mycelial generator in play based off of the various detritus that is being left behind.
Okay, just out of curiosity, what's a mycelial generator?
Essentially a solar generator where you make a miniature sun to power your ship instead of, say, a black hole.
Oh, okay.
So, as a point for conserving momentum points for us, as the chief science officer, doesn't he get a free question since it was using ship computers?
That is true. Yes, he does. So,
yes, I
no
do.
momentum needed to be spent. Unless you want to ask additional questions.
Which you can. I mean, I will let the science officer ask all the questions.
Which, as a science officer, I have a duty to the ship to understand everything. No, I'm just kidding. I can't think of another one other than they're moving into Breen space. And I'm assuming this is a normal course for these ships.
The missing ships, that is definitely not a normal course. They're well within the Tholian border, but on top of that change of direction towards the Breen Confederation, that's a That's a. I mean, heading towards the Badlands is bad. It's in the name. Heading towards the
Yeah.
green, that's even more terrifying.
And that would push them well beyond Ferengi space. That's not a question. That's just
Yeah.
my understanding of the Star Trek universe map.
Yeah, looking at the map, that is correct. Yeah.
I wrote a captain.
I figured
You
we were
actually
both
would be on the bridge.
Oh, he just turns around. Captain,
Go ahead, Ensign.
these ships are not heading on a normal standard course. They are diverting towards the Breen Consortium.
Towards the Breen.
Hmm.
Oh, okay.
And they have some sort of experimental technology.
Yeah, we saw they had something weird going on with their engineering decks. Looked like some sort of open hole fusion monstrosity. We thought.
I fear they are using fusion technology, solar thermal fusion technology.
We thought maybe they were ships that had been captured by remnants of the Maquis, considering they were heading to the Badlands, and they would have the expertise needed to mess with Federation ships. But if they're heading towards Breen space, the Breens had allied with the Dominion. So
This doesn't seem like Dominion technology.
no,
There's a distinct experimental quality to this.
right. It's just, where did they get the Federation hulls is the question, or one of the questions. Because the problem is the Tholians were attacking.
You see
Tholians
Kip.
attacked because they. Go ahead.
You see Kip swivel around, and he begins to type in the exact dimensions that these ships would be, and then cross-references that to ships that were either mothballed or in some debris, in some place like the London 14, like just a free-floating shipyard of scrap metal ship.
Right.
Cross-comparing that with the list that Commander Viss had pulled together based off of her suspicion that it was a ship lost during the Dominion War, the holes that were extrapolated from the engineering tests and the data that you're pulling here, a similar conclusion is brought that at least the command ship of the two ships appears to be very similar in design to the USS Kirk, a retrofitted Constitution class that was refit with not Constitution, it was a Galaxy class that was refit with Sovereign class upgrades towards the beginning of the Dominion War conflict before going missing in action. The second ship is as far as you can tell, strange bastardization of the Defiant and Akira classes that is very punchy, but its design is all over the place, especially with the projected area where the mycelial generator should be. And there is no ship on record in Federation records that matches that ship.
I see. Okay, this is where there might be a rule involved with this. But this is where the theoretic comes in. I could see a Galaxy Sovereign hybrid.
It is a Galaxy style hull. It's just on record it had gone through a refit with a number of upgrades
Yeah.
that the Sovereign had received.
I could see that size of a ship holding a miniature sun type drive that would be similar to the ISS. I can't remember her name.
The Karen,
Yeah,
which is a ship that is formally blacklisted and off all records.
yeah, that's an out of character knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But the USS, so the USS Kirk being a Galaxy Sovereign hybrid, I think my character would start doing the math as to how big a ship would be. It's the Defiant Akira that's vexing me, because
The mycelial generator on that is supposedly contained towards the back half of the ship, roughly where the nacelle crossbars are. And that's where the containment field that was extrapolated by Cruce's calculations with the Tholian.
Wouldn't they need like 30 decks for that?
That's what the theory says, and current knowledge about that style of generator would be.
Okay, that they would need about 30 decks for that, so I could see that in the Kirk. But a Defiant Akira would only be escort class.
Correct.
The Akira is like 13 decks. It's just a huge, wide, long ship. But it's very narrow in design.
Has figured out a way to miniaturize this technology.
The USS Kirk seems more like it would be. Well, this is just. I'm just spitballing. You can invoke scientific theory rules.
Scientific theory rules that allows you to spitball and make a roll to see if one of them's right. I think.
Yeah.
Let's go pull all that up.
That's what I was about to say. I'm going to hit scientific theory at this point, because my theory would be that the USS Kirk would be the obvious one that's holding a mycelial generator, and the other ship would be more of an escort class.
I will say, to help push that theory a little bit, there is some data that was extrapolated from Tholian sensor readings that was taken as part of the diplomatic negotiations of last session, and Lieutenant Cruz, your engineering buddy, used it to create a holographic representation based off of those, and it appears that both ships have these containment fields that have been designed into each ship. The larger command ship appears to have hollowed out the entire engineering section so that the bottom of the ship just looks concave for this and they were able to actually extrapolate these prongs that showed the containment field, just not the actual energy source. The smaller escort class ship has something similar, and it is across those back prongs, pretty much on the back of the ship itself, like almost like a turtle shell.
Okay.
So, based off of your data and the Tholian sensor data that was taken, there is no conjecture that one or the other has it. It is a question of how did they miniaturize it for the escort class.
Is it? I'm just trying to picture this in my brain. On the escort class, is it basically they added decks in the very back of it? Like, I know I don't have Starship hull design it as a focus, but being that my background is designing starships, my entire family designed starships, I would think that did they just add extra deck space in the back of this Defiant Akira hybrid?
Give me a moment.
Which myself and
drop something in the Discord and then on top of the stream, so I can hopefully approximate this for people well enough.
I'm still trying to picture a Defiant Akira hybrid.
It is a very strange looking ship, and let's see.
It's probably the way I would imagine a Defiant ship under Federation rules should look like.
I would say Defiant has exposed nacelles because it's not stupid.
Yeah.
Alright, so it has that thick half disc that the Defiant class has instead of the full disc of an
Mm-hmm.
Akira class, but then it has this sort of cross-hatched back section, which is very reminiscent of the Akira class, and it has this open space where a Defiant class would not have it. And at that
Mm-hmm.
open space where there is the crosshatch of the Akira class, there are a number of these prongs facing upwards where there is a containment field that is being generated. And it is literally
Okay.
across the back of the ship, sort of on those crosshatches.
Okay.
And
So
just
yeah,
for
they would have added extra. They would have added extra space to hold the miniature sun.
Basically.
your awareness, these two ships took out 6 Gorn ships when
Tholian,
traditional
not Gorn. Tholian.
Tholian ships. When traditional combat records state it would be normally a one-on-one, one-to-one type
Well,
skill, like you would take out one
well,
ship.
Captain, you must understand when you have the power of a sun, the normal power generation of a standard warp drive is very, very limited. Where the power of a sun is expansive, you would have to have a certain number of plasma relays. This is just me talking from experience, that you would have to have, not experience per se, but experience in putting ships together. You would have to have a number of plasma relays that could handle the plasma energy of the sun. But that gives you an immense amount of power. And that amount of power, if you channeled it into a weapon system, would be devastating.
And what was interesting is what was left over from the battle scene was that one of the ships was essentially atomized, but the other 5 almost looked like they were hit with traditional weapon,
Plasma weaponry?
phaser based.
Phaser weapon.
Yeah,
Phaser based.
Federation ships with phaser based weaponry.
Why would you use phaser based with miniatures? Okay. All right, let me start doing some calculations as to what the power generation is on that. And that's what he's going to start doing.
Alrighty. Let's turn this into a bit of a scientific conversation. Figuring it out might fall into next session a little bit, but go ahead and throw out a few theories that you may be having.
So my original theory is that they're taking the power of these miniature suns, and they are, well, I would put it in plasma-based weapons because you already have a plasma-based system. But they're converting the plasma into phaser-based energy and running their phaser systems completely off of the sun power, as well as obviously the other functions of the ships. But specifically that their phaser systems would be highly advanced and closer to what we would conceive of as the best of both worlds Borg weapon.
Okay. That's your primary theory. Do you have any others that you want to throw out there just for the system to sort of work with?
That these ships are mostly automated and aren't running. They're running exceedingly hot. So they can generate a lot of power, but they're also running exceedingly hot.
Alrighty. So I'm going to set a work task for you, and I'm going to have you keep track of it as best as possible, and I'll do the same over here. Let me make sure I've got the list of things that I need here.
Work.
Yeah, work, magnitude, and all that fun stuff. Page flipping. The most wondrous part of tabletop games, everyone. It is the slow flipping of pages when your fingers are fat.
I know that feeling.
Okay, work, magnitude, dip, resistance, difficulty, and time.
There we go. Oh, bollocks. I lost my page again. Do you have the page number for that?
Not off the top of my head.
Or the scientific method stuff.
Yeah.
It's page 157 in the core book.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
157. There we go.
Oh, can I throw a third theory out there?
Certainly. You can throw as many as you want out there. Generally, though,
This
they recommend
is
between 3 and 5.
yeah. So that's why I said a third theory. My third theory is that this isn't Federation technology at all. That this is maybe an alien race who has perfected this type of technology, but is masquerading as a Federation ship.
Alrighty. Alrighty, so I am going to set the difficulty on this at... I'm going to set it at 4. It's going to make
Okay,
this a little
difficulty is 4.
There are no
You love
time
threat.
intervals, just because that's going to make this nice and fun. You got time currently. Work track and magnitude. Work track and magnitude. Just trying to figure out what an appropriate amount would be here, because that's always the fun part of these.
$10, $15, $20, $30. 10 would be
I'm
if
gonna say
it
that the
has
magnitude
no
is-
significance.
The magnitude is going to be 3, and then the work track is going to be 9, specifically.
Work 9?
Yeah, the work track is going to be 9, magnitude 3,
Okay.
difficulty 4.
Okay.
And there is no resistance.
This is gonna go quick. All right.
Still kind of new to all this. Magnitude is the number of breakthroughs you need to get, right?
Correct.
And then you get a breakthrough for every 5 points.
Correct.
Or if you fill the work track.
Correct.
And/or.
Okay, there's the part I was missing. It's if you overfill the work track.
So it's possible to get 2 in a roll.
Yeah.
If you
Okay.
do
I was like,
both.
how are you going to get 3 breakthroughs with a value of 9? But the answer is you fill the work track and then it converts to breakthroughs after.
Yeah, it uses the exact same method as combat, where stress and injuries, and if that helps.
Okay.
That's what I use to cheat.
So difficulty is 4. The ship will assist with computers and science, unless you have a different thing that it would want to assist with, and you could argue it.
There's a couple that I could argue, but computers and science would be where I would start. What would Kip's role be here? As he's crunching the numbers tactically.
I would say that I would be willing to give you either insight science or reason science. I'd allow both. They both fit in this situation. Trying to read into it as well as just crunching pure numbers.
Oh, insight science it is. And so as he's crunching and putting all of these theorems together, does sensor operations or subspace communications, computers, any of that apply?
I'm gonna say no, based off of that, unless you've got an argument for one.
Right. Well, if he's using the sensors, that's the only thing that I could argue that sensors operations would apply. If he's tracking ships, if they're communicating in any way, he would probably be able to track subspace communication. And I can't come up with computers, to be honest. I was spitballing.
I'm gonna say no in this case because you're using data that you've extrapolated and stuff like that, and without any fresh
Okay.
data, I wouldn't allow the sensors, and you're not actively trying to intercept communications or understand that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna say no to the subspace ones.
If he's, how about if he's using computers to crunch the numbers?
I'll allow it.
Okay. All right. So computers is a focus. I am going to give you 3 threat because I have untapped potential and I want to use it.
That'll bring me up to almost full. I've got 11 out of 12 right now.
Mm-hmm. And I got 4 dice to roll.
Yep.
Complication range 1.
Currently complication range 1. We'll see if you have to make some more work later.
Damn, Kip.
Well,
Oh, sorry.
you definitely.
And I got a
beat the
reroll.
4. Yeah, you do.
Good
if you
roll.
want to re-roll any of that.
Do I want to re-roll any of that?
Why would you want to reroll 6 successes?
Yeah.
I wasn't. I don't look at the roll until after I've rolled because then I'm thoroughly either pleased or disappointed. All right, so 7 successes or 6 successes?
7
counting-
overall because you had the Marvel helping you, so you do beat
Okay.
the difficulty by 3.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna
And
say again.
We're maxed. You have all the momentum in the world. We're maxed +1, so you get 1 free
Right.
momentum to whatever you can throw momentum at for research.
Yes, you do.
yes, I do, and I might be throwing it here in a second.
You could add additional work or re-roll work. Luckily, you don't need to use piercing since I didn't throw any resistance on this. But
Right.
you're gonna end
So
up.
how many challenge dice am I rolling?
You roll at least 2 challenge dice plus an additional challenge, a number of challenge dice equal to your discipline. So that would be the science.
So 0.6.
Alrighty, so that is 1, 2, 3, 4 work done. So you won't get a breakthrough for that unless you want to just spend momentum to push it right to 5.
Can I spend that extra momentum to push that to 5?
Yep. So that's going to
Yep.
be at least 1 breakthrough.
Okay. So work is 4.
Work is 5. You push it to 5.
No, I mean the work left over is 4.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yes, it is.
Magnitude 2. The difficulty is still 4.
As you start crunching those numbers, there's the first of your theories I will confirm is correct. They are channeling that energy from these mycelial generators directly into a phaser-based system. It's likely not their only weapon system based off your calculation because unless they have a significantly advanced system compared to yours, at which point why would they be using a Federation ship array anyways? They would blow out any phaser array that they would have with any standard materials they'd have available to make said generator or their ship. So they do have other systems, but they are channeling that directly into it, which is creating a very high-powered phaser that could cut through a ship like butter, potentially even being able to overload or slip through shields based off of how precise you could cut that phaser.
Is this very much like the Borg weapon of Best of Both Worlds?
It very much could be. It is definitely showing that in the data.
Okay.
Those high-powered disruptor beams, the disruptors are very focused on just cutting through, atomizing, breaking through. The only reason that these phaser systems are doing the same kind of damage is because of how much power is coming from that mycelial generator. It's packing a punch.
Your godly power.
Which does somewhat play into your other theories that this could be a non-Federation presence that is using these ships either as a test bed of some kind or something to use these generators, but it is definitely not Federation. The Federation does not have this tech. They haven't really been researching into it, and it would take an outside presence to use it currently.
Okay.
The ship design is what keys you through to something that is disturbing to you. Well, maybe not. I don't know exactly if it would be disturbing, but to a standard Federation mindset, the way that these ships are designed is purely for power. It is as if someone took the Federation style, the Federation sensibility for ship design, and then told the Klingons to just max it all out to the most dangerous they could, and then told the humans, we're gonna just combine shit until it doesn't blow up and works. It is one of the most dangerous ship designs that you have seen in a Federation configuration, potentially ever. And that includes the ship you're on.
I have a question. This would be purely from a ship design question. Would this ship possibly self-destruct if it was to receive battle damage?
It might function similarly to a Romulan warbird, where it would tear itself apart, probably because of the gravimetrics of it all.
Okay.
But the key thing that you're seeing there is that this is a Federation-style ship designed for combat, for war, for destruction. It is not designed with Federation standards in mind when it comes to that.
Kip is going to start to reverse engineer where the EPS and plasma conduits would be at this point.
Alrighty. And we will hop into another interval of that probably next session, but I'm assuming you're relaying that information off to the captain and such.
Oh, I would assume that he's doing this right as he's looking over all of this information, just
going through
info dumped.
It's an info dump. I almost want to get all of the rolls done now, on the off chance that something happens.
We'll hold on to it for now, just for next session.
Okay.
Because time will be involved in going through your theories.
I think that information, what information we do have, I prepare a communication packet detailing what we think we've learned, along with the knowledge that these ships have changed course and where they appear to be heading, and send that back towards Tholian Space, earmarking it specifically for the ship that we met before and won, but it's basically there for any Tholians, since I know they all communicate with each other. So I'm hoping one of them will get it and we'll send it to the correct one. Also sending said information to the local starbase,
where it will eventually meet the ears of Admiral Para and everyone else.
Right.
Captain, my keen Zakthorn observation is that these ships might tear themselves apart if we put enough energy on these prong generators. I'm just pointing them out. That's if we have to go up against these things, which I really do not want to do.
I don't either, considering I saw them tear apart something equivalent to us with apparent ease. I prefer not to have to engage them in combat, at least without knowing more about them. But that's a good point, that we may have some idea of a possible weak point. I know you're busy working out through the theories, but you might work with Commander Soren.
I will keep Commander Soren completely updated on theories of the designs of these ships.
That is appreciated, Ensign. Such is logical to
I feel like
combine knowledge
I'm
bases.
mispronouncing his name. Is it Soren? Saren? No, it's not Saren. Saren was Mass Effect.
Sarin.
Sarain.
Yeah, Sarin. Nice and simple.
We're going to have to improvise something here.
Yeah, and Soren, if you'll maybe take a look at that information, just have something ready for us in case we're into it. I mean, we are not really headed towards marine space right now, so we should have a fair bit of time.
Of course, Captain.
How the heck are we going to catch up with?
Considering that we
How-
have found their change of course, it may be prudent to adjust our warp factor from a crawl, sir.
Out of character status of Federation, Cardassian diplomacy. Cardassia is kind of recovering from everything that happened.
Correct. They're basically receiving Federation aid and starting to pull themselves back together, though that is arguable about how together they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there
In
any
other
issue-
words, they're in no position to fight the Federation for another war.
Definitely.
is there
not.
any issue with Federation ships traveling through Cardassian space?
Currently not. You guys have been doing a lot of relief missions out there, so it is kind of acceptable. You might get harassed by Cardassian pirates or holdouts from the old military that's still quote-unquote Dominion loyal, but those are rare and few between.
Okay. And I'm looking at the fleet map right now. Roughly an idea of where exactly we are. I know we were on the Tholian border. We were heading towards the Badlands. That puts us like alongside the Talarian Republic.
You guys
Is that
were
kind of where we are?
You guys were kind of skirting that edge around the outside of the Tholian border to keep track of this warp signature to kind of follow it, figure out where it was going.
We're in that black unclaimed space.
Exactly. And they've adjusted their course, which would have put them through Cardassian space towards the Badlands, towards now.
Green section. Okay.
Exactly.
Now that I have an idea tactically of where we are, Commander, if you'll put us on a route to follow or to intersect as soon as possible the possible trail from these ships, and jump us to Warp 7.
Understood, Captain. Right away. Engaging Warp 7. And the ship just barely feels the shift as it warps up into a higher gear, and you start seeing those stars streak by faster and faster. Warp 7 achieved, Captain. Holding steady.
Thank you, Commander. Let me know when we get close to Cardassian space. Well, we probably ought to give them a courtesy call and let them know we'll be passing by.
Understood, Captain. Alrighty. At that speed, you should potentially, based off of the data you're seeing, intercept them within about 5 to 6 hours, based off of the speeds you're going. So,
Oh.
we will cut that for the end of the night, and unless there's anyone else who wants a final scene for the night.
I'm good, thanks.
I still
I'm
need my
actually-
head examined.
I'd actually like to have one with Ensign Dyra.
Okay.
A couple of hours after all this has occurred, so 3 or 4 hours before we get to where we might be near them. I'll ask Darrow to meet me in the ready room at his.
At my convenience, I probably would never show up.
Well, okay. So I say that, and then after about an hour and more, okay. Ensign, at your convenience meant when you were finished with your immediate tasking, not when you felt like it necessarily.
He walks into the ready room. Captain, I don't really think you understand the necessary adjustments of Starship design, but I can work on it while you are talking to me.
Ask you about artificial intelligence and the reaction in Federation, because you are one of the more technically minded people, and the Zakdorn as a species tend to have a unique perspective on things.
He sets the pad down. Cybernetics is not my field of expertise. What I do know from Federation history is that there have been several species who have used cybernetic technology to various degrees. From humans who used it to augment themselves and create a slave robot class, to the Binars who live in a symbiotic existence with a cybernetic brain. It can be advantageous or disadvantageous. The advantages of having a cybernetic life form are obvious. You have a life form that can process information much faster than a normal biological, to a degree of hours, but a biological will always win. There was one of my species who beat a synthetic life form at Stratego.
Most impressive.
Indeed, yes. I feel that there's a follow-up question.
It's been mentioned to me from some various sources that there is concern about the use of artificial intelligence, androids, sentient computer programs, and the like in the Federation.
Well, we have a very fast-working computer on the ship that is essentially a very rudimentary AI. There are sentient life forms like Commander Data who have served Starfleet with an exceedingly good record, and then there are sentient life forms that have been a bane. I personally think that an AI would be the sum of its programming. Nothing more, nothing less. So if you make an AI that is, well, don't presume that you could make an AI that is as good as a Zakdorn brain. It would be very efficient in security and tactical matters. If you create an AI that is subservient, you could theoretically start coming into a slave race, and you would be Harvey Mudd.
Based on your comment about the sentient AI being the sum of its programming, do you imply that they're not capable of learning past their program?
That's not correct, Captain. This is not my field of expertise, so I'm only going to tell you what I learned at the Academy. That an AI can be programmed to learn, but its learning rate is finite. It's going to process the information faster than a human brain to a degree, but both things being equal, it's not going to have the creativity of the human brain. So that is the advantage that the biological brain has over the AI brain. I personally think that a android can learn and be better. and be a functioning member of society. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't serve with one. Is there one of these androids that you are thinking for serving on the ship?
Not directly, immediately. I'm looking for differences in opinions to test theories of my own,
Well,
to make sure that I am being fair in my assessments of both what they're capable of, what they should be allowed to be, and how the Federation is reacting to them.
Well, it would probably help you, Captain, if you weren't watching Cation soap operas.
I have not seen occasion soap opera.
That's to cover the meowing that was coming through somebody's mic.
Oh, that is my background. Yes, you're correct.
You really should. If you're going to think about this, you shouldn't be watching Cation soap operas.
I don't know if there's the equivalent of like granting someone like there's the spotlight thing that deserves the spotlight just for that alone. That's
Captain. Every officer brings something unique. An AI android is no different, in my opinion, than you or I. It's a life form. A holographic life form. There have been case studies of holograms gaining sentience. I, for one, think this is a great thing. A computer program gaining sentience is only going to bring a more unique perspective. But it is a life form. I could have been born a Horta. Well, I couldn't have. Obviously, DNA dictates that I'm born a Zakdorn. But if I was a Horta, I would be no less of a Starfleet officer than if I'm a Zakdorn. I would be possibly a detriment to the ship, but we'd work something out.
I don't disagree with you.
So whoever's giving you this idea that AIs should be something that should be feared, politely tell them to talk to me, and I'll set them straight.
I don't think their message was necessarily that AI should be feared. It's that the Federation is acting as if they already fear the AI. And I know my personal feelings on the matter are that we shouldn't. But I also know that the progress made on Dr. Soon's work has been limited at best.
Well, that's because Dr. Soon was a genius, and there has not been one of his caliber since.
True.
His breakthroughs come through that genius. There are certain scientists whose breakthroughs are unique in science.
But a lot of
Einstein
the work
with his theory of relativity, Saram with his theory of warp transmutability, creating a warp drive that could go past warp 5. Great for a Vulcan. I mean,
right.
Tactically superior.
I know that a lot of the work that was being done on projects like Soon's has been blacklisted, mothballed, hidden, discouraged.
Do you think, Captain, that the Federation is afraid that sentient life will become sentient androids will become a slave caste, something akin to what Harvey Mudd did?
Maybe. I also wondered if this is a situation of the average person lashing out against something that they can control, given that so much has happened recently that they can't control between the multitude
I don't think
of
it's
wars.
that at all. I think that there is an old fear in humanity that humanity fears change in a sentient android, is that change that
I could understand the fear of being replaced. Something that could do our jobs better than us.
can they?
And that's the question. And
I mean, if
I think the answer right now, given current technological status, the answer is no. The closest that we've gotten to that is Commander Data, who, by virtue of being a Starfleet officer, I mean, I remember reading the case study on his right to be considered a living being, and we questioned what would happen if there was a fleet of Datas. They wouldn't sleep, they wouldn't stop. But you are correct, they don't have creativity. They're able to extrapolate, they're able to think ahead, but the work you're doing on the ships that we're investigating is not something that they might not be able to make that, for lack of a better term, illogical jump that spurs the idea that gives you the theory that turns into a solution. If there's not a linear path to get there, I don't know that they could make that yet.
now you're beginning to sound like a Vulcan, Captain.
The Vulcans are one of the closest beings to being a robot.
I don't think that at all. I think a Vulcan has everything that every member of the Federation brings something unique.
Oh, absolutely.
Brings something unique. And I think that over time you will find that an android synthetic life form is going to be just as unique.
I think so eventually. What I'm trying to do is make sure that my opinions, my personal opinions, are not coloring the way that I see the Federation. And from our discussion, I think the answer is, well, there's at least two people who think that there's something here.
Look at it this way. In the early days of the Federation, maybe even before the Federation was formed, humans didn't trust Vulcans.
That's true.
Vulcans didn't trust Andorians. Tellurites could care frig about everybody.
I was going to say they didn't get along with anybody, but I think that's just who they are.
And yet those four species came together and created the Federation. Maybe they don't trust each other to this day. Maybe there are designs by each individual world to needle and interfere in the affairs of the others. But there are many, many more worlds that came to the Federation because it's a better ideal than anything out there. The Romulan Star Empire is dying. The Klingons are, Klingons. The Cardassians are refugees at best.
And
war criminals at worst.
And two of the three are basically joining the Federation.
Because we're the best thing that's out there, Cap.
And I hope we will remain that.
I do too. I would hate to serve something else.
Well, I'll let you get back to your work. I did not mean to pull you away for so long. I just needed a second head to bounce some ideas off of.
Anytime you need a scientific opinion, I am here, Captain. He stands up. If you want, I can have my cyberneticist experts mull these theories over for you.
Having a third opinion would not be amiss.
Then I shall do so. May I get back to my work, Captain?
Absolutely, Ensign. Thanks for taking the time.
He nods and walks out of the room.
Anything else, Captain?
I'll just, after the door closes, I'll just lean back. What about that, Q? Just to the open.
There isn't any response.
I don't expect one.
Just the silence of your office. And that wavering thought. But there is always
What wavering?
the ones that are still on your mind. The idea of, what is Q trying to get me to think about? Are there any other scenes that are needed tonight?
Not tonight.
I'm good.
Thanks.
Alrighty. Then I will close it out tonight with one final scene, and it actually will involve the captain. As the flight continues going on a little bit further and a little bit further, there's this sensation running down the back of your neck. Just the first time that you've been in command in a situation like this, it was admittedly not after good things had happened. You were forced to take command because of bad things, and now you were in command because of it, and you have over 1,000 people on your ship that are hoping that you'll make the right decisions. The command is sitting on your shoulders, looking down on you, on that desk, on that whole ship around you. And the thought crosses your mind of what happens when you meet with these ships.
Nothing good.
From all of us here at the USS Marvel and the 10th Expeditionary Fleet, wish all you listening happy hunting. Hailing frequencies are closed.